It's time for the Roundup. That's Scout.com's Jason Jewell. I'm Jared Cohen. We bring you the latest in Arizona high school football recruiting year-round on the Recruiting Roundup. Week 1, or technically Week 0, in the books for high school football. Every week we'll have a Player of the Week to spotlight. Have to give it to Paul Lucas. It might not be the last time we give it to him for what he's capable of, but what he did in the Sullenberger Classic on Saturday night against Reed was pretty spectacular.
For the second year in a row, on a national stage in the Sullenberger Classic, Lucas just goes off. Last year was his breakout performance against Bishop Gorman. Against Reed, he had 3 touchdowns in 3 different ways of scoring. He had a rushing touchdown, he had a long receiving touchdown, and he had a kickoff return for a touchdown. Just ridiculous. Lucas is a special player. Use that speed. Norris Vaughn's got a good one.
Paul Lucas, really special player. That whole running game was spectacular in that game for the Pride as they start 1-0 on the season. Every week throughout the season, Jason and I, we're out at games every Friday night, sometimes on Saturdays, sometimes on Thursdays, who knows. But we are out there each and every week, and we will find breakout prospects, that we'll call them, that really catch our eye over the course of those games, and we'll talk about them each week on the Roundup. Our first breakout prospect for this week, Jason.
I was at the O'Connor-Hamilton game, and I was a big fan of junior running back Kyler Burke for the Huskies. Now, Steve Bellis likes to use those guys like Kendall Taylor, where they're running back / slot receiver, and that's exactly what Burke is. He did a little bit of both. He's about 6'1", 160 pounds, has solid speed. He scored a touchdown rushing, and he had a receiving touchdown.
My breakout prospect, I was out at Liberty and Ironwood Ridge on Friday night. 2 very good teams that played an excellent game. The defense has really stepped up, especially in the second half. I'm going to go on the Ironwood Ridge side of the football, even though they came up just short in the game. Who really stood out to me was Matt Solverson. We talked about him in the Daily Dozen leading up to the season, and we actually spotlighted him as a tight end. He only played 1 snap the entire game as a tight end. They focused him on defense, and he was a rover on defense. When I talked to him after the game, I was like, can you classify what position you actually play? And he considered himself a rover because I saw him in the safety spot, middle linebacker, even lined up as a nickel corner. Does a little bit of everything, has great size, great athleticism. He plays 3 sports, also volleyball and basketball, and a kid that I think if Ironwood Ridge's defense continues to play like this with him leading the way, they are going to be a very tough defense to stop, led by Matt Solverson out of Oro Valley at Ironwood Ridge. Now, Jason, let's look ahead to this week. 2 fantastic matchups that in the offseason, you circle these games on the schedule. The first one, Centennial and Chandler. It was a good matchup last year. Chandler got the better of it at home. What are you looking for this time around?
Yeah, this is the game that I will be at, and you're looking at 2 schools that are completely contrasting in their styles, at least on the offensive side of the ball. You look at a Chandler team, spread the ball out. They have all those athletes. Yeah, Bryce Perkins at quarterback. He has so many Division I wide receivers. Let's get the ball to the athletes in space and let them make plays. Where you look at the Centennial, the Coyotes offense, they're ground and pound. They have a giant offensive line. Brett Tons, Marshall Nathy, Stephen Bailey, very good football players, and they have a very big running back in Dedrick Young, who's just a beast, over 200 pounds. So again, contrasting styles of football, but both very good and sound football teams.
Should be a great one. One of the top contenders in Division I and Division II for this season squaring off. The game that I'm going to be looking forward to and looking ahead is Saguaro Chaparral. As always, one of the best rivalries in football. Christian Kirk has done so much over the course of his now going to be 4 years in high school, but one thing he hasn't done is beat Chaparral. They are 0-3 since Christian Kirk arrived with the SaberCats, so he will look to get that first victory. For Saguaro, it's our first look at Corey Lyles at quarterback, taking over for Luke Rubenzer. Also, the first games for Byron Murphy and Cameron Johnson in Saguaro uniform. And on the other side of the football, it's all about Chaparral's defense that I'm going to be paying attention to. They have great returners in Kurt Sugart and Robbie Clyfield, and they also have their new head coach, Conrad Hamilton, who is a big defensive guru. We'll look to see what the new era of Chaparral football under Hamilton looks like in a rivalry game for their first game of the season. That's it for this week's edition of the Roundup. Tune in next week. We'll have more breakout prospects and another player of the week as the rest of the schools in the state take the field.